at Covenant Day School in Matthews, North Carolina, and where I also have the privilege of coaching varsity volleyball. So really excited to share what student athletes need to know. I'm anticipating that I am speaking with student athletes as well as perhaps some parents listening in. So very, very excited that you all are joining this evening, and we are going to get started since we've just got about 30 minutes together. So one of the things I really encourage student athletes to think about, even though I know that they are motivated to be able to continue their athletic career at the next level, I think for any student searching for the right college, whether it's a student athlete or not, it's really, really important that they come up with a few guiding principles that help them with a framework from which to consider what schools would be a good fit. So I really encourage student athletes to talk with parents about this. It is absolutely a guiding principle if in fact you want to have the ability to play at the next level be one of the things that helps you in your search. I think that that's appropriate and good. One of the things I want to reiterate throughout this presentation is to not limit yourself as a student athlete. Most definitely, you want to visit a variety of institutions and you want to keep your options open. There are a variety of levels or divisions, and so as you take a look at different schools and different athletic programs, and for your sport in particular, keep an open mind and think about a good place where you can contribute, also be appropriately challenged, and where you can thrive, not just athletically, but also academically. They call it student athlete for a reason, and so keeping that in mind throughout your search process is really an important thing. So you'll see as we go through, hopefully my screen is available to you, and I know that this PowerPoint and presentation will also be available to you. But as a reminder to you as a student athlete and to parents, be patient with the process, be very intentional, and also be prayerful about it. Parents and students, I mean, I think that the number one here on the screen is really, really important for student athletes to be having open and honest conversations that talk about your desires, your goals, the plans that you have, seeking wisdom, both from your parents, but also current coaches. I think that that conversation needs to happen even before you perhaps come up with a list of schools and or programs that you're interested in pursuing. Talking with club coaches, talking with your high school coaches will be a really important conversation. It'll help you sort of know what they believe your level to be, and also perhaps give you some direction as the type of programs that you should be looking at. Also understanding the process. That's why you're here tonight, to try to understand the process, to make a plan, and to work the plan. I think that the ownership of this process, while parents and coaches can absolutely be helpful and they're necessary in order to manage it well and to bounce ideas off of them and to, again, seek their wisdom, you need to, as a student athlete, own the process. So that means thinking about it, that means brainstorming, that means researching schools and programs, that means communicating with coaches, things that are very difficult to do when you're still in high school, but a really important part of this process because it's a big decision. Would really encourage you also to think holistically about your choices and what you're pursuing. Beyond college, it is a very, very small percentage of student athletes that will continue their athletic careers. So you want to be thinking about the choice of what kind of institution you're going to be choosing and where you're going to be going to grow and invest yourself. Continue to ask the Lord for clarity in this process, and then be obedient. So one of the things that I get asked the most is, as a student athlete, how do I get noticed and how do I get recruited? It does vary a little bit, but these are the things that I would drill down on as I'm talking with my students and my student athletes. to communicate with a college coach and assistant coaches of a school in which you're interested in is really important. There are, again, different levels, but if you are a highly recruited Division I athlete, they will find you. They will find you because of your ability, and they will find you based on statistics. For Division II and Division III, students really need to be advocating for themselves, and coaches do like that. It is true that coaches are recruiting at all levels. That's true. NCCAA, NAIA, and NCAA Division I, II, and III. All of these coaches are recruiting athletes, but many teams are made up of athletes who have pursued those programs, those schools, and those coaches. So please, I think one of the biggest mistakes student athletes make is they wait around for a coach to contact them. That is probably less than 5% of student athletes that play in college. The coach pursued them. So number one, students, please communicate with coaches. I think it's a good idea to send the same email to the head coach as well as assistant coaches. Sometimes the assistant coaches are charged with communicating with prospective student athletes, and other times they just do more of the arrangements for visitation. So I think it's a good idea to send it to the whole coaching staff. The second one there is what you could do tonight when you're done visiting all of the colleges on this virtual college tour tonight, is to fill out the athletic recruitment forms or questionnaires. You will find these on nearly every single institution's website if you go to the athletic page, and it might be called recruitment form or prospective student athlete questionnaire. Fill that out because the answer goes directly to the coaching staff at that school of the sport in which you are interested. So number one and number two, super, super important. Number three might seem pretty obvious to you. Attend any elite camps where the coaches might be, or attend the camps at the school in which you are interested. So if you, I might be talking to some freshmen and sophomores tonight. I hope I am, but juniors and seniors, obviously, if you're a junior, you've got another summer, hopefully, where you can go to a camp at the school or schools in which you are considering. But that is a really important part of it because obviously the coaching staff can get a really good look at you. They can look at your skills. They can look at the tangible things that you would bring to any team or program, but they can also see the intangibles, and those are recruited in some cases just as much as the tangibles. So a camp is a great way to get noticed or recruited. Number four, if and when you plan to visit, request an opportunity to speak with the coach while you're on campus. And if the coach is there, sometimes the admissions office will set up that meeting, or sometimes they'll give you some time where you can go over and see if the coach is on site. So would really encourage you with that. Also, if you've had good conversations with your club coach or your high school coach, have them reach out to the coach or the program where you are interested. College coaches have a lot of respect for high school coaches. I have many good conversations with college coaches about my players, and that's a great way to have someone else advocate for you and be able to talk with another coach where you're interested just about your skills and, again, those intangibles. And then number six, this one, I want to speak to it and want to make sure student athletes are really listening to this. Highlight reels are awesome, but coaches, in addition to a highlight reel, they would like to see some footage of a match that's sort of uninterrupted or a game that's uninterrupted. You might also have a YouTube link or site where you post some of your games, and you could send that to a coach. That allows them to see some things more uninterrupted and not just a highlight reel. Well, as I mentioned, there are a variety of options in different levels of play. So I just wanted to show them to you tonight. NCAA is the most popular. That's the sports that you see on television. Division I, there's Division II, and there's Division III. Because this is just a 30-minute session, I don't have a lot of time to drill down, but briefly, I will tell you, Division I are large institutions, again, the ones that you hear the most about, and they, as a student athlete, will take much more of your time as a student athlete, and it is a bit more of a job in that sense. And Division II, they say a little bit that's the best of both worlds. You're a student athlete, and there's a large amount of time committed, very competitive, but at the same time, allowing for space where you are off season to be able to focus on studies and a little bit of downtime. In Division III, very competitive as well, but they are putting academics notably first, and the athletics is a great way to support their overall campus experience and experiences on colleges. But the Division III, one thing to keep in mind is they are typically a bit more academic institutions. Then the NAIA, you would register if you want to play NCAA, you register with them, and there's a screen about that later. NAIA, same thing, you register with them. Another intercollegiate athletic organization, and many of our NACAP schools would also be participating in NAIA. They also have championships at the end, just like the NCAA. And then there's the National Christian College Athletic Association, NCCAA. So there are a variety of options, and would just encourage you to keep your options open. One of the things that I think causes some confusion is that there are different times in which college coaches cannot recruit or pursue you as a student athlete. But let me put your mind at ease, student athletes and parents of student athletes. You should never fear initiating communication with a college coach because you're unfamiliar with the rules. It is up to the college coaches to know the rules and to guide and direct you in that way. So if a student athlete tries to communicate with a coach during what we call a quiet period or a dead period, the coach will just redirect you and say, it's a dead period right now. I can't talk with you, but we can talk at a later time. So don't worry, students, about breaking a rule there, because the ownership of that is not on you, it's on the college coaches, and they are up to speed on all of that. You should, as a student athlete, never be in trouble because of communicating with the coach too early or too often, because the reality is those rules change over the years and are different for different sports as well. Obviously, if a coach says it's a quiet period and they can't talk with you, respect that, but you can certainly find out when they could talk with you. And as it relates to any violations, the one thing you always want to keep in mind as a prospective student athlete is not to accept any gifts from athletic programs or coaches. So the link that I have on this slide takes you right to recruiting calendars. It also gives you a lot of terminology there from the NCAA as to what is and isn't acceptable. Things like dead period, quiet period, letters of intent, what an official visit is, what an unofficial visit is. Some of that terminology that you may not yet be familiar with, that site would be really helpful to you. What is very important is that you register with the NCAA. This is an eligibility center that will let you know that you are or are not eligible to play collegiate sports within the NCAA, which is Division I, II, or III. You may register with them your freshman year, your sophomore year. It's not essential you register that early, but you are welcome to. Certainly by your second semester of your junior year, you should probably be registering. If you are a senior listening in, don't worry, it's not too late. You can go on there and register right now, no problems. These are the things that you need in order to register with the NCAA. The link is there, the website's there. Again, this PowerPoint will be made available to you. You can certainly take a screenshot of it as well. But there is a fee for registering with the NCAA. So you just need to have basic information. It will help you to have maybe your transcript in front of you as well, your high school transcript. And then the only other thing after you register for the NCAA that you need to do to become eligible is you will need to ask your guidance counselor, your high school guidance counselor, to send your transcript to the NCAA, just like they would send your transcript to a college. So you can do that. Typically, it's good to do it your junior year, but sending that transcript to the NCAA is a part of deciding whether you are eligible or not. What should athletes do? Well, certainly athletes need to be proactive. I have wanted to and will continue to reiterate that student athletes need to have ownership of this. I think making a list of prospective schools or colleges that you're interested in, it is absolutely okay. Again, if one of your guiding principles is, yes, I want to go to college, but I definitely want to play sports in college. It's such an enriching thing in your life. It can continue to be enriching in your life if you have the skill set and the perseverance to continue to play at the next level. Sometimes what I encourage my students to do is make a list of schools with your sport. If you're a basketball player, schools that you'd love to go to get an education and you think you can play basketball at those schools. And then make a list of schools without basketball. Schools that you're interested in, whether you could play there or not. The times in which those two lists intersect, that's when I think you really have some good matches to pursue. Because if you go to a school and, I mean, you don't want to think about this, but maybe you blow out your knee or your pitching arm or whatever, you want to also still be at a school where you can enjoy it and grow and thrive. So I think making two lists is very smart. And again, when those two lists intersect, you would be happy at the school with or without sports, those are the schools you really want to begin with to pursue. So making a list of prospective schools, look at the prospective college rosters, certainly see how many players they seem to be graduating. Also, I think I encourage my athletes to take a look and see how many seniors they have that are still playing, right? There's all kinds of reasons that student athletes may only play for a year or two in college, but sometimes it can indicate that maybe the program isn't as good or as strong if they're not able to keep their athletes playing for 4 years. So that's just something that would be good in your research. And also, if they're going to have spaces open your year that you're coming up. So again, I already mentioned this, but fill out the prospective athlete interest form online. Those are on the athletic pages of the websites of colleges. Upload videos to YouTube and or send that link to college coaches. And then in my opinion, you don't need to pay for a recruiting service. I think that if you and or your parent and coaches are on top of this, it's not necessary. I'm not saying that all of those recruiting services are a ripoff or anything like that. I'm just saying that you want to own the process. And I think that sometimes with recruiting services, they are looking to make matches that is solely based on athletics. And I would encourage you students to be thinking about, yes, athletics, but also the overall school as a fit. So best practices in recruitment. This is not just for the professionals, this is also for students. So contacting coaches directly via phone or email, you showing demonstrated interest in the institution, knowing more about the school than just the athletic program that you're interested in, discussing academic programs with them. And even if you're undecided, which is a great way to start college, in my opinion, even if you're undecided, talking with them about maybe what kind of academic resources the school has and what kind of advising they have to help you select a major as you move through your college career. Visiting the campuses. I always say, and I know it's hard right now at some schools, but you have to go to know. Education done well, athletics done well is really about relationships. So getting to know these coaches, getting to know what the feel and the personality of the college is like, I think it's really, really important. Have realistic expectations. That's where you need to ask your high school coach, your club coaches, what level they think you can play at. Parents, same thing. I mean, certainly when parents are seeing their children, sometimes our view of our children may be more elevated than certainly a coach who doesn't know your child. So be realistic and have some of those frank and open conversations with coaches. Send statistical performance information schedules to coaches. That would just be helpful, or film. And then a best practice, again, in the recruitment process is being open to Division 1, 2, and 3 institutions, perhaps NAIA or NCCAA. Communicate clearly with admissions offices. I want to make sure that I've said this. If you are recruited by a coach, that does not mean you are admitted to an institution. You still fill out an application, you still submit that, and the coaches work closely with admissions offices. So there's no problem in getting some advice from the coaches or the compliance officer. Every college has a compliance officer or a coach that plays the role of a compliance officer that can help you, but make sure you fill out an application to be admitted to the school. And then think about life outside of athletics. You are going to be at this school, so what other things will you be enjoying? Worst practices in recruitment process. Discounting, dismissing institutions based on division, like, oh, I'm not going to play Division 3, that's not going to be good enough for me. There are some Division 3 schools that are as competitive, and I would argue more competitive than some Division 1 schools. So just be knowledgeable. Don't be wrapped up into the hype or the noise where you're not really knowing what you're talking about. So don't dismiss institutions just based on division. Unrealistic athletic aspirations, again, going back to those frank conversations with coaches. Another worst practice is to only communicate with the athletic departments. Again, you need to communicate with the admissions office if it's a school you're really interested in and are going to want to attend. Assuming that being eligible through the NCAA equates to being admissible to an institution. Those are not the same things. You may be NCAA eligible, and you'll need to be in order to participate, but that doesn't mean that you will be admitted to a college. College has additional standards in which they admit students, and they vary from institution to institution. Another worst practice, assuming that the coach must show interest in you. I alluded to this at the beginning of the presentation, that coaches are pursuing and recruiting athletes, but do not sit around and wait for a coach to find you. I think it's the biggest mistake student athletes who really want to play in college make. Counting on athletic scholarships simply because you will have a spot on the team does not mean that you will get an athletic scholarship. So make sure your communication is really clear when it comes to working with college coaches. And in fact, Division 3, they don't give athletic scholarships. Now they give other institutional scholarships to make it possible for student athletes to come to school and to play, but they're not athletic scholarships. Another worst practice is not informing institutions of your final decision. You need to make sure your communication is open with coaches, and coaches should do the same. They should make sure their communication is open with you. And then focusing on college choices solely on athletics. I think I've already touched on that. So that it's been said, the first thing here, any recruited student athlete must apply to the college or university. The coach doesn't admit you as a student. You are a student athlete. Student comes first for a reason. If you continue to do well in school, and I mean high school, then you will become a much more attractive recruit for any sport, for any coach, at any program, for any program at any institution. So they are recruiting student athletes. Yes, you have to have the skills, don't get me wrong. You've got to be able to play. But if you have a solid or strong transcript, it's going to make you much more recruitable. And then lastly, I say this from the coaching standpoint, at the next level, the speed, the strength, the conditioning is very much next level for collegiate athletes. So you need to get in the weight room. These next slides, because of our time, I'm just going to show you really quickly. High school plan for freshmen and sophomores. Things that you want to be doing is checking the NCAA requirements, and that you will find that on ncaa.org. Some of these things are repetitive: attending sports camps, take the PSAT, and then register with the Eligibility Center. Again, that's not required to do your freshman or sophomore year, but you can do it. At the bottom there, it says download the guide for college-bound athlete. You will find that through the NCAA website as well. Juniors, what do you do now? Certainly taking the SAT and/or create a sports resume. That can be done your junior year. What does that sports resume look like? Yes, it looks like your athletic accomplishments and maybe statistics, but in addition to that, it also looks like listing your high school coach and their information, perhaps your club or travel coaches and their information, and maybe even your guidance counselor. Just getting that information to a college coach could be really helpful. Also, the things you're involved with outside of your sport, that can be a really great thing to have on even your sports resume. The NCAA eligibility, attending sports camps, completing the athletic recruitment questionnaires, those sorts of things. And seniors, at this point in your senior year, you may be trying to figure out certain schools, but hopefully you're a bit more familiar with the process, and make sure that you ask who the compliance officer is at the college or colleges you are looking at, so that you can get really clear answers that are institutional specific as well as division specific. Finding the right fit while pursuing athletics. I think all of this I've said to you already, but ask yourself if the institution and the program is going to help you towards the goal of who you want to become. Ask yourself that, because I think it's really, really important. And then just some things to remember. There are dead periods and quiet periods with the NCAA. There are verbal commitments and national letters of intent. A verbal commitment is just that. National letters of intent are signed much later, the senior year. Those are the signing days where those sorts of things get announced. Colleges will send you the letters of intent. Be prayerful about this, be patient, be intentional. And then I have highlighted on here the compliance officer, which I already mentioned to you. So you have 4 years of eligibility at the collegiate level. There is something called redshirting. We don't have a lot of time to go in that, because I certainly want to leave time for questions, but just wanted to mention that to you. So I don't know for sure if there's questions, but I am happy to field any questions if you have them.
Heather, we have one question, and hopefully if anyone else wants to ask, please use the Q&A function now, so we have time to get your question on the slate here. Her question was asked, early slide had all the sports listed, and they noticed that the NCCAA did not have swimming listed. And the question was that a complete list or was that an abbreviated list?
Good question. NCAA definitely has swimming, so I can certainly answer that straight away. That might have been an oversight or maybe got cut off, but absolutely swimming exists for the NCCAA.
Yeah, the NCCAA does have swimming. We are at the top of the hour, and I see no other questions coming in. So hopefully that means that it was just a very thorough presentation. And I'm sure many questions will come to mind in the coming days and weeks. So certainly ask that any questions that may come up to reach out to here in the NACAP office, and we will try to track down the answer if we don't know it. I want to thank Heather for her time and her expertise. Certainly gives us a great deal to think about. As a parent of a senior who aspires to be a student athlete himself, I know I made quite a few notes, and I know you started it and ended it, but I think it certainly warrants repeating. Be patient, be intentional, and be prayerful. I can't think of better advice to both start and end this presentation. So again, thank you so much for your time, Heather, and your expertise.
My pleasure, and best wishes to everybody.